Let's get on with business for today. This afternoon, there's been very angry scenes in Parliament. The minority group, of course, have staged what we can describe at this point as their first walkout of the 7th Parliament, complaining again about the manner in which the Speaker was treating them as minority. It's one of several complaints raised by the minority leader, especially in the last few weeks, in some cases accusing the Speaker of violating the rules of procedure in the House. The trigger today was the discussion on the controversial Ameri power deal, which the minority says was not handled in accordance with the dictates of standing orders of Parliament. Take a look at how it all unfolded.
Order. Honorable K.T. Hammond and Honorable K.T. Hammond, at this stage, I will want that you simply refer to the listing on the order paper for now. And then when that is seconded, I'll ask for argument to go on or otherwise. But we want it to be properly before the House, by way of a motion introduced and seconded. Then I'll know what other direction to take. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House rescinds its decision to approve the build, own, operate, and transfer agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana and its resources investment group, Ameri Energy, for the installation of 10 GE TM 2,500 plus operate, maintain, transfer, and provision of support services that the House took 20th March 2015 for reasons of gross misrepresentation.
So the Speaker ended it there and called for a different motion to be moved.
It is proper to refer this matter to the Committee on Energy to consider the matter. Order. To refer the matter. Order. To the Committee on Energy. When the Committee on Energy, which comprises both sides of the House, and brought a report, decide on the matter in its entirety. In the process, the committee may decide to invite the Honorable Minister for Energy, the Ameri Company, and all other officials or persons to the committee for a full analysis and hearing of the matter. This will include, as we always do, contributions from the members of the public. When that has been done by the committee, then Parliament at its plenary will consider the matter in its entirety. At that moment, any legal or other points that any member thinks fit to be raised may be so raised as part of the entire debate on this matter.
Well, that was the Speaker. What he said, by the way, did not go down well with the minority. It was indeed the point of provocation for them. And then they began to stage a walkout.
On 2nd March 2017,
Order. Chairman of the committee. Order. Honorable members, order.
Well, if those things intrigue you, we'll bring you more of that. But later on, Minority Leader Haruna Idris held a press conference to explain the circumstances that led to their boycott. Let's go over to Parliament. Now, we'll bring you the Minority Leader a bit later. But right now, Joseph Opoku Gakpo is standing by with the Majority Leader in Parliament for their own reaction to this as well. Hello, Gakpo.
Hello, Gifty, I can hear you. And so the Majority Leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, has been addressing the media here in Parliament House a while ago to respond to a number of the concerns and clarify a few of the issues that happened on the floor. Let's just speak to him briefly here. The Honorable Osei Mensah Bonsu joins us. Honorable, thanks very much for joining us. So we saw earlier in the day your colleagues on the minority side. What's your initial reaction to their decision?
Well, my initial reaction is that it was most unfortunate because we're dealing with procedure. And what happened was that the Honorable Katie Amon had moved a motion. The motion had been seconded. Don't forget that for whatever reason, our colleagues wanted, even before the motion was moved, they wanted to scuttle it. But we had our way based on the rules of procedure. Because I said, the Minority Leader, that if a motion has not been moved and seconded, there's nothing before us. So what are you arresting when there's nothing before us anyway? Then he realized that he had made a mistake, sat down. The motion got moved. It was seconded. And then the Speaker then ruled. But before the member who was moving the motion could expatiate on the motion, this heard you. We're talking about misrepresentation, which has caused this House to take a decision. That's a very weighty issue. And that being the case, I don't want you to proceed. So whatever you have as evidence, take it to the committee. And if you take it to the committee, it will provide an opportunity for the minister to come with his own counter arguments or maybe documents to support you or not to support you. And then the committee will be helped to come to determination.
That's exactly where they have their concerns. And they raise the fundamental question, whether we've seen anywhere in Parliament that a motion has been moved and it's been referred to a committee of Parliament to deliberate on. They think that that's a procedure thing in Parliament before.
Recently, we had a half-hour motion from party. What happened to me? Tell me. People should be consistent. Now,
as far as I recall, that motion was eventually.
Yes,
and it didn't have to go to a committee, as far as I remember.
It lies with the Speaker. The issues that were contained, because it is like Parliament has taken a decision based on some fraudulent considerations. And the Speaker said, now if you have to debate this matter, the partners will not have the opportunity to respond in plenary. the parties involved will not have the opportunity to respond in plenary. So he says to us, give the weight of what we want to raise. I implore you, take it to the committee. Present same to the committee. That will provide adequate platform for the minister to come their side of the case. If we have to revisit it, it could happen. It would happen that Ameri directive started to litigate the matter, whereupon the mover of the motion, Honorable Katie Hammond, got up and said to Mr. Speaker that what the minority leader was doing, he was imploring the Speaker to rule him out of order because the Speaker had not provided him space to provide the necessary documentation and referrals as far as the new information that has come before him is concerned. And so he was saying to Mr. Speaker that to the extent that he had been prevented from unveiling what documents that he had, what new information that he had, the minority that can also be given the opportunity to talk to an issue that is not sufficiently before the plenary. So he invited the Speaker to rule him out of order, which the Speaker did. Now, our orders provide that if a person comes on a point of order against a person on his feet, the Speaker will have to stop everything and rule on that point of order application. The Speaker sustained the application of Honorable Katie Hammond in respect of the point of order that he raised and said to the minority leader, cannot continue, and then call for another item to be discussed in plenary. And then he got angry and called his people to walk out.
Do you think there's been a situation of this, in quotes, bias against them or unfair treatment happening over the duration, and that it's a accumulation of all of that that forced them to take the decision they did on the floor?
We are talking about procedure in Parliament. It is, if they don't agree with it, or if they are questioning the procedure, let them say so. What is unfair in this procedure that the Speaker resorted to?
So for you,
I mean, we are bound by rules, and people should subject themselves to rules of the House. I'm not saying that the Speaker is an angel. I mean, the Speaker, any president, anybody, including myself, even Supreme Court justices, who are supposed to be the all-in-all when it comes to interpretation of the Constitution, could make mistakes. Everybody is fallible. But, again, there are legitimate processes open to us.
And you think that's why the minority is failing to exhaust in terms of going through the laid down lawful procedure? In this particular case,
I'm telling you what the import of what the Speaker did and what was wrong with what he did. Okay. So let's subject ourselves to the rules. I think if we do that, there'll be harmony in this House. I don't want us to go back to what happened yesterday when we were in the minority. I don't want us to go back, because if we are to juxtapose what is happening today and what happened yesterday, the people of this country will get to know that. And we want the frontiers of good democratic governance to be expanded. So I'll go with the minority if we have to litigate whatever they deem inappropriate. If they have to come by motion. We saw what happened the day before yesterday when Muntaka raised this issue about the arrest, the searches of members of parliament. As a matter of principle, constitutive, I supported him and asked that the Speaker should invite the minister responsible for national security and those of them involved in that act, which is what happened yesterday. And we had a very good, rapport with them, a very good. Parliament is supposed to. You remember when it happened to Obi Amwa and Kenohene Japan, when we wanted to raise it on the floor, the then Speaker prevented us from doing that. So we are improving on our governance. It is not to say that we are there yet. We are not there yet.
Leader, my final question will be, so what will happen going forward? The minority side, they are peeved. You are leader of government business and you are leader of the House. What will you do to...
We'll talk to them. We haven't exhausted the business of the House. We need to say tomorrow. We need the cooperation of the minority, will try to convince and persuade them to resort to the processes defined by our own rules of procedure. And of course, we are all human. Talk to them, and I believe that we shall be on course.
Many thanks for joining us. Finally, the 3 minutes I asked is up eventually. This is
3 times 3. 3 times 3.
Thanks very much for joining us. That's the majority leader in Parliament, Osei Mensah Bonsu, with those reactions to the concerns that were raised earlier today by the minority in Parliament, for which they walked out of the House. Gifty.
Yeah, because the minority chief whip Muntaka Mubarak also addressed the press right after they walked out of Parliament, as well as the minority leader. Let's hear from the minority chief whip.
But the gagging, people don't understand, because you see, it is not for nothing that the minority leader stands. It is because the minority have reasons to speak. And if you do everything to prevent them from speaking, you make the House very difficult to govern. For the first time, let's go and check Order 53. It is the majority leader who gets up with the indulgence of the Mr. Speaker and the House to vary the business of the day. You don't have the Speaker himself running the House as if it's a small church or his small home where he decides which business he calls. It's not done that way. The Standing Order 53 clearly stipulates which business should be done first, which one should be done second, and in that order. So if for any reason the leader of government business thinks that because of one priority or the other, they want to disorder it and do it in a different way, it is the leader in consultation with his colleagues on the majority side who agree, and then he will apply to the Speaker to get that done. But unfortunately, just look at what we are seeing. You see, we don't want it to look as if we are just complaining and complaining and complaining. But one thing we can assure Mr. Speaker is that we shall continue to fight until he understands that this is a house that every member must be given space. You were there when we were debating the Gate-Mo 2. Are you really happy the way he was conducting things? Members get up. You participate in the debate. Speaker does not participate in the debate. He was participating in the debate. Such an important thing. He said he was going to allow only 2 people to speak. We decided that fine. You want 2 people to speak, let them have the space. Even when a member, Honorable Mama Yaga, was reminding him that this is the only platform that ordinary citizens of this country can express themselves without being held, he will not bite. You see, we are worried. We are worried. And look, we left because we thought that, one, he should have allowed our leader to exhaust the case that he was, because he was citing Supreme Court rulings. He wouldn't let that happen. Even the majority leader himself was saying that, look, you are just carrying the business without even consulting me. Ministers are there to answer questions. Members have their questions needed to be asked. You just order the business the way that you, the one sitting, suits you. Our standing orders do not allow that. And we are really very saddened. We are saying that the constant neglect by the Speaker to ignore and disrespect the minority. Look, with a greater respect, yes, he could be the age of our parents or some of us. But you should remember, some of the members behind us are older than him. And those of us who lead, we take the age of the seat. So he should stop looking at us as if some small boys that are talking to him. With a greater respect, we came, both the minority leader and myself, we came to this house with him. In 1995, we were all in this, 2005, we were all in this house together with him. He left and he came to meet us, and we are still here. Give us the respect that those who lead the minority. You should know, we are the official minority, the opposition in this country. If we cannot have enough space to even air our views, what business have we? Our notice is that we shall continue to demonstrate, to insist, to work out, to do whatever we can to let the Speaker understand that the chamber is for members of Parliament.
The minority chief whip there explaining why they are not very happy with the Speaker there. But the minority leader then explains that this walkout is actually not in protest of the Ameri power deal, but that one in protest of how the Speaker has conducted affairs in the House of Parliament so far. We can now hear from Haruna Idrisu, the leader of the minority, on the matter.
We have taken this action to protest against the conduct of the Speaker in referring a motion to a committee of Parliament
a motion which have not been debated, and a motion for which no decision have been taken. This is a House governed by procedure and a House governed by rules and the standing orders. Nowhere, and I challenge you to peruse the standing orders and give us basis and justification for the referral. We had initially signaled that we wanted to raise a constitutional objection to the motion, referring to a Supreme Court ruling in the matter of Ndebugri versus the Attorney General, and two others, where it was decided by the Supreme Court, even though on a matter relating to natural resources, that once Parliament gives approval, the matter now is in the realm of the judiciary once there is a contract in force, and that the matter is in the realm of the executive. More importantly, even as I was on my feet and I referred to the Ndebugri versus the Attorney General and two others, he did not allow me to refer to the particular quote. He only responded to a point of order by the Honorable K.T. Hammond and again went into his bizarre conclusion on the matter. Under the circumstance, we have no option than to protest the manner in which he is endangering parliamentary democracy and its practice. The other day, it was about questions, and I'm challenging the Ghanaian public and the media and persons who are familiar with parliamentary work and the Hansard to go into the records. Everywhere, the minority must have its say, not its way.
So he's referring to several of such instances, according to them, of course. So what does the Speaker has to say about this? Well, he's been mounting very strong defense of his conduct in Parliament. Of course, he met with a delegation from the Council of State earlier and raised a concern with the Speaker, who raised a concern with the Speaker in Parliament House yesterday.
It is on record that the Speaker allowed 6 members of the majority to speak during that question time, and 9 members of the minority. Please, you can check. It is the formula now created by a Speaker who loves collegiality, conviviality, and equity, that the members who are the ordinary members should finish having their say, and then the Speaker comes to leadership, and that collective expression has become a term of art which we are regularly using. About a month or so ago, when the minority leadership had completed their good contribution, and I said majority leadership, the majority leader decided to concede to somebody else. When that person finished, the majority leader wanted to speak. My expression as borne out by Hansard is that, majority leader, by this, you intend to have a double bite at the cherry. And that will not be right. But nevertheless, being the leader, you may speak for 2 minutes. The majority leader did not remonstrate. He spoke for 2 minutes and sat down. On this occasion, having given a majority of contribution to the minority, then when I said minority leadership, it is collegial, it's collective. The Honorable Munjaka got up and spoke. When he sat down, the minority leader got up. I told him exactly what I had earlier told the majority leader. And added, will be borne out by Hansard, out of deference to your office, I will allow you 1 question. Out of deference to your office, as minority leader, I will allow you 1 question. A sign of respect in the performance of a public duty. The minority leader said, if he was not allowed more questions, he would not ask anything at all. That was when the Honorable Munjaka rose without having been called and made all those remarks that you all saw on TV. Whether this was enough to provoke that, I leave to your good judgment. I would have wished this was not raised, but I would not want you, please, to go away without a full picture. Our rules provide that even if you are not satisfied with a ruling, you appeal against the ruling as provided. I don't see where demonstrations are allowed by our rules and by people who want to go the legal way in doing things. And I will advise that you are very careful about this. The minority had most of the questions that day. It doesn't come from a partial person. The minority had to follow the same rule as had been established, the same process of doing things, and which cuts both ways. So long as a speaker applies a way of conducting affairs that applies to both sides of the house, I think he is fair and just. And for that matter, he must be allowed to balance the scales and do justice. And this is exactly what happened on that occasion. It's worthy of note that the following day, when the same Honorable Mentaka saw me before we went to sit and informed me about certain searches on members of the minority, or some members of the minority. Even though there was not notice, though it had not been listed, I immediately said, this is a very important development, and I'll give you the liberty to raise it on the floor of the House. And I'll also take it up with the relevant authorities. That well, he needed not have been allowed to raise this on the floor of the House. First, it was belated. Secondly, his request was that I should speak to the authorities. I did speak to them. But I know the ways of politics. You're entitled to air your view and let your constituents and others know that this matter has been raised on the floor of the House.
Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, with his version of the story there. Let's go over the telephone line now and engage Gakpo once again before we let go of him. Hello, Gakpo. Hello.
If I can hear you.
Right. Now, the minority, of course, we know their position. The majority said they're going to engage them. From your interaction in Parliament, does it look like they will listen to the majority if they approach them?
Well, it looks so. It looks so because earlier when we had a conversation with the majority team, with the minority side, they gave that same indication that they think some level of engagement would have to happen, both at the level of the majority and even themselves, because they were of the impression that these are things that to a certain extent can be settled and can be dragged out. You would recall that yesterday, this was an issue that they raised even before the Council of State. And so earlier, one of the questions we were putting to the leaders on the minority side was whether they would want to further push that bit in terms of getting the Council of State to intervene. But they say that, well, this is parliamentary business. To a large extent, they believe that they would have to sort it out among themselves. So they look forward to further conversations to bring an amicable settlement.
Very well. The minority leader also speaks about going back to the House tomorrow because they're not done with business of the House. But then, what other issues were there in Parliament? We know that the Ameri deal was the trigger, but what other issues did they talk about?
Before the issue of the Ameri deal came up, there was the concern having to do with the Gizmo 2 issue, and you would recall that the Minister for Foreign Affairs brought to Parliament the third agreement between government of Ghana and the U.S. government to allow for the 2 former Guantanamo Bay detainees to actually stay in the country. It was brought on Friday. The Committee on Foreign Affairs sat on it. They brought a report to the floor of Parliament earlier in the day. And then the report was debated and approval was given. And so as we speak, Parliament has ratified that agreement that would allow for the 2 former Gitmo 2 people to actually stay in this country. But in the course of the conversation, a concern came up. When you read the report of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, they make the point that they have been briefed that these 2 gentlemen are people who are not linked with any terror organization and that they don't pose any threat to Ghana's security. When Parliament was debating that particular report before approval, the Honorable Katie Hammond, the MP for Adansia Supa, was drawing attention to the fact that as far as he is concerned, the 2 of them were not picked up, in his words, in the Sugakope area, cooling off, but they were picked up on the battlefield somewhere in the Afghanistan area. And so he doesn't buy the idea that they don't pose any harm and that they are not linked to any terror groups. But eventually the House got the deal approved. There was also another concern which the Foreign Affairs Minister responded to. In fact, what a lot of people have lost sight of is that when the Ghana government and the U.S. government came to an agreement for hosting them, the agreement was that they will be hosted for a period of 2 years, and that after the 2 years, it will have to be their own decision as to whether they want to continue staying in the country or that they would want to seek asylum here in Ghana or they want to be sent elsewhere. That 2-year period expires sometime next year, and so there were questions from MPs as to what would happen once the agreement expires, and the Foreign Affairs Minister indicated that she is going to look at that and they will take a decision subsequently. The last thing, which was also another key thing that developed in Parliament earlier today, has to do with the controversial route towing issue. You would recall that despite the passage of a legislative instrument to allow for that, which is something like 3 years ago, the effort by government to get it implemented drew some criticism, and eventually it was suspended. The situation is that Parliament Road and Transport Committee has been deliberating on that, and they've come to a decision that it's a good idea that needs to be pushed through. All that needs to be done is some amount of education for ordinary members of the public. So Parliament Select Committee on Road and Transport is backing the idea that as soon as possible, as early as September this year, government should resume the charging of these said mandatory road tolls.
Joseph, we'll look forward to how the minority are able to sort out their issues with the Speaker, by the way. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is our parliamentary correspondent, always bringing us up to speed on what's happening in Parliament. You're still watching The Pulse with me. I'm going to take a very quick break. It will be quick, I promise. When we return, by the way, we'll talk about the future of the GJA. Do you see the future of the GJA from where you sit? That's a very interesting conversation we'll be engaging right after this. Please stay.